the Light Institute, and the Sanctuary of Light. Welcome each and all of you to this time of knowings and invite you to bring forward the questions of your heart so that we can illuminate ourselves and allow that to ripple out into the world. So please, yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
What we haven't talked about is prayer and whether
Yes.
what we receive, what we're doing with bringing in light and radiating it out is, I'm asking your personal concept of prayer,
Yes.
how you pray, because I have trouble with, I mean, God is indescribable, and so,
Yes.
but we need a personal something, so,
Or do we?
or do we pray to our higher self?
Yes. I wrote a book about that called The Evolution of God.
I'm reading it.
Good. And the concept there is that it's very quaint for humans to, especially in times of anxiety, to revert back to give me a father and give me someone who's going to tell me what to do. Give me someone I can please. Give me someone who's going to fix it for me. And we disconnect, or we have never been taught or been aware that we are it, that we have come here as perfect, infinite souls in order to advance the evolution of our species, to support our planet, to radiate out through the solar system, and to allow and support the evolution of God. Again, at my divinity school, we never used the word God because it always means the male guy over there. And God may be the beauty of a tree or a star coming. And so we need to, I'm not saying we have to let go of God in the form that you may have had all your life. But what I'm saying is, come to a place where you can see yourself as part of that God, so that you can trust your divinity. You can trust the purpose of your life just from being here. People are always saying, what would make my life important? What can I do? My higher self would say, take a deep breath. Because when you breathe and when you exhale, the thoughts and the energy and the love and the consciousness you have ripple out from you and influence everyone else. If you went around and touched people on the shoulder, you might completely change their lives. You have no idea how your presence could influence and change and evolve our species. And so we need to shift from not wanting to take responsibility, not wanting to be the ones, to see that always outside us, but to be able to say, I am. I am, you know. So prayer, as I said in the book, The Evolution of God, it's been a wonderful thing. Prayer circles can be very healing to people. Again, I would say there's a higher octave of that, though. Instead of the supplication, oh God, will you please make my mother well? Will you please fix it for me? Will you give me the money I need? Will you? That does not allow you to use the power, the strength that you were given as on the level of the soul. And so we need to release that supplication and hold in our consciousness what it is that we see as the potential there. And as we do that, our prayers would be different. What I said in that book was, what if the prayers that you spoke were praying for God, not to God? May the divine source evolve to ever enlighten the experience of embodiment, for example. What would that do to shake us free of the guilt, of the I'm unworthy of God, of all those old archaic thought forms that were useful in tribes 2,000 years ago, which are not useful in today's world? If you will not take responsibility and say, I am here, I will give the best, I will bring the light, then who will? How will we evolve? There is no God up there going, gosh, will these humans hurry up? They are sleeping. No, that is not going on. Because time is an illusion in the infinite cosmos. We can take as long as we want. But as a collective group, we're beginning to feel the push. You know, we feel the possibility. We feel something coming. We are what's coming. How about that? My higher self always said that time is not a linear thing, that there's an arc of time. So that the past and the present and the future are all intertwined with each other. So when you use prayer, allow your consciousness to find a different way to express that prayer so that it's not supplication. Because you're saying, oh, make my mother live. How do you know that's what she needs? That's what you need her to do. But that's not necessarily what she needs to do. We cannot see the hologram. We cannot see the good, the purpose in things that we are unaware of, that have been part of us. And this great being's name is Pharaoh. Pharaoh, it's very nice to see you. We haven't seen you in a long time. Yes. The two-leggeds and the four-leggeds are equal here. Absolutely. And so what I would say is allow prayer to be what you hold in your consciousness. Life is good. Feel what it is to be the source yourself. When you draw the light from the cosmos and you extend it through your human form out, you are changing the molecules. You are changing the ethers. You are making a difference. You are using your life, and therefore that's your purpose. Because my higher self says that the purpose of life is the evolution of the soul. And so, if we are the evolution of the soul, the one soul, then as we evolve, God evolves. So that's what I would say about prayer. I think, as my mother used to say to me, if you want to know how you are, look at your friends. So if you are in the company of the gods, if you're in the company of great beings who sit here, in the company of the stars and earth, then you are awake. You are conscious enough to be, again, the agent of change. So, pray in that way. All of those things that came from the Eastern religions, this kind of thing, it is honoring the divine in every other being. That's what it always meant. Namaste. I see the divine in you. If we lived in that way, war would stop. Jealousy would stop. We would have we wouldn't have to be king of the mountain. We would say, look at how wonderful you are. And when someone outside you reminds you how wonderful you are, you heal. You feel whole. You feel peaceful. And this is what we have all come to do. Through all the stress that we feel, that's just our funnel of initiation. We are passing through that. So, contemplate praying in a new way. Let your own higher self whisper to you the energy of it. We have made enough contracts and vows on spiritual levels, on emotional levels, on financial levels, physical levels. It's time for us to follow through with the deepest knowing and intention of ourselves, rather than intertwining. If you'll do that, then I'll do this. We don't need that anymore. We need to say, I will, I will. Yes.
About 6 weeks ago, one of my loved ones shot and killed herself. Would you please talk about suicide?
I would say that it's important for you to really help her now. Because when a person feels that there is no hope, no way out, hatred of the self, hatred of life, and they do that kind of thing, the consciousness always goes into darkness. Because it has no light, because it's not seeing the way out. If it saw the light, it would say, all right, I can let go of this, or I can fix that over there. And so a person does that when they have lost themselves. So it's very important for those who were connected to her, her soul friends, to really extend the energy of light. My higher self gave me this gift, actually galactic energy gave me this gift, of drawing the white light from the cosmos down through you into your solar plexus and creating an avenue of white light, and then inviting the spirit to come into that avenue and to go home to those who love that being, because they've lost the love, they've lost the connection, they've separated from family, they have, even if you were her best friend, you were her best lover, her best teacher, whatever you were, something was incomplete in her that she could not live without. And so, spiritually, my higher self says it's worse to kill the self, call it worse, than to kill another. Because you have chosen life. You've chosen from a level of the soul to come into body. And when you cannot survive it, unless she was dying.
No.
She wasn't, no, I didn't get that. I think there's nothing wrong with, not this way, but ending our lives if we're going to die, if there's no way to save the body, then I think that's the humane and the spiritual thing to do. Now, in all these years of incarnational work, there are several things that I've discovered about suicide. One is it's very addictive. If you do it in one lifetime, you tend to go, okay, that's the only way out, I'm going to do it again and again and again and again, until at some point you come to a place where you can hold that sense of self, that sense of, no matter how hard it is, I am here and I honor myself for being here. And so it's a very difficult thing. And I actually discovered that when I was working with women who had been raped and abused. And several of them had become pregnant, and also some people, international people who had been impregnated during wars. And what was very interesting about that was that they would either abort the baby, or some terrible thing would go on there. And when I connected to the spirit of the babies, all of them had committed suicide in other lifetimes. And the message that they gave was, I'm teaching myself to love life. What a tough way to do it. Have somebody say, okay, that's all, you don't get any more, out. And I've seen these spirits come out in huge fits of anger, but it allows them, it's something that they have created for themselves, it allows them to rebalance. Life has no meaning or purpose to, how dare you take my life, and to come to a place where I know that when they come into a body again, they will hold it, So suicide is a very difficult conversation, because it puts us into darkness. And it puts us into a darkness that's hard for us to get through. And that's why I say, it's a gift to you. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's a gift to you to therefore saying, this is what she chose now. Let me be her soul friend. Because her dying in that way is going to, of course, stimulate some conversations inside you. And so now, give back to her and help her to find that there is a light. What I found is that you can fall into the pit of darkness at any moment, in any situation, in any lifetime. There is no bottom. Eventually you will rise. You will rise into the gray, and you will rise into the light. So nobody is doomed. I found it very interesting that the Pope in the last couple of years signed a papal mandate that said, we are changing the law, and now if a baby dies without being baptized, that baby will only be in hell for a certain time. They actually wrote that. Imagine that they put time into hell, and that they say the baby's only going to suffer in hell for a certain period of time because his parents didn't get to it fast enough. So I would say, there are things that don't fit into our world, and punishment is one of them. There is nothing. Working with killers myself, I really have learned that the worst unspeakable killer has a perfect soul. that is not coming from the soul. It's coming from the confusion of the difference between being in the unmanifest and being in the manifest world, being in body, and how it closes off to us where we belong and who we are and what is available to us. So let us all do this little exercise right now. What was her name?
Lydia.
Lydia. Please close your eyes. Take a deep breath into your body. Draw white light from the cosmos, from the deepest cosmos, piercing white light to the top of your head, down through your heart into your stomach, your solar plexus, and laser that white light, extend it out so that you're releasing any contraction and holding and fear within you. Extend that white light out, and then keep bringing it in and breathing it out so that it spreads out into a beautiful, moving avenue of white light, and that moving avenue is going back up into the sky. And now, in your consciousness, touch that energy, that consciousness of Lydia. And show Lydia this beautiful avenue of white light. And invite her to get upon it and to travel home to those who love her, that will comfort her and free her. Just keep that white light moving and feel as if she is getting upon it and traveling on that moving avenue up, up, up into piercing explosion of light. And open your eyes. What could you feel? Could you feel that she moved?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, she's become more welcoming of the light over time.
Yes.
I started, because I learned that exercise
Yes.
here, and I started doing that the night
Yes.
she died. And at first she was,
Because
No.
she couldn't really
yeah,
give it to herself.
right. But now she's very happy to.
I saw a huge explosion of light above, and then that quickened it. So I'm sure that she has moved into that octave. And what you want to do also, anytime that you think of her, ask your consciousness to show you the thing that you love the most about her. You know, her best quality. And then just feel as if you hold that quality that's been given to you, it's inside you. And in that way, you carry the legacy of her, of the best in her. And that's the way to hold her. Not any of the rest of it. You want to let all that go. Just hold, might have been her smile or her tenderness or her sensitivity or whatever that was. Just hold that in you and allow it to amplify that quality inside you. Great. Thank you. What else? Yes.
In connection with that, when you're saying that when we're sending somebody into the light that's died or passed, to the ones who love you,
Yes.
when we do sessions, we clear kind
Yes.
of waiting in that dimension.
Yes.
Could you speak about that?
Yes.
Who's waiting around?
Yes.
To
The
greet
reason
us when
we do
die?
that is because when people, what I have seen, what I've experienced myself, is that there are many levels of astral energy, strata, if you will. We could say that heaven is the ellipsis, it's the top of that, what we all think of as heaven, or the most light, or the most beauty, or the most peace. And so there are all of these levels. There are beings that help people to sort out. And again, what happens, sometimes those who are waiting, it's just a way of orientating them,
Right.
because they're losing, they can't get back into their body, and they're losing all points of reference, that crystallization, but the heaviness is there. And so when you give them that point of reference, it might have been a parent that died when they were a child, it might have been a friend, it might have been a dog, it could be anything or anyone. It simply says up here. What we know about the emotional body, and again, when we leave our body, the emotional body begins to release and rebalance. The emotional body doesn't really ever completely let go until it has something that takes it on.
I see.
And that's why we use that
Mhm.
point of technology. Okay, here's the point of reference. You know, someone who died a beautiful death, they go straight
Right,
into the
yeah.
light. They go past all that astral energy immediately.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to me how few people do.
Yeah.
How few people I've known who I've considered to be, you know, really at peace with themselves. Maybe they died well and they're still hovering around. There's someone close to me in my family that has been hovering for quite a while. Why? That could be because the rest of the family is pulling and holding that crystallization. So we want to give a point of reference that's out there.
Mhm.
There is family to you. Now, we cannot know this, but imagine the infinite lifetimes. So the person that may come, or the crystallization that they may perceive, may be someone that they have known in another lifetime, that they never met in this lifetime. But the multidimensional self recognizes that. It might be a point of love or completion or comfort, and they can go right into that. So it's a very important awareness how many beings do love us. And from this side, you know, especially someone who committed suicide, you might think rationally, well, they probably think nobody loves them.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they're yearning for that love. And if you give them that point of reference, they will automatically link to some point of reference of being loved or protected or being freed or something like that. And it will carry them on. And they need so much to be carried on. They're done. Not coming back to this. They need to go on.
Well, I had Colonel Gaddafi come on the
Yes.
highway as I was meditating there.
Yes.
And it was interesting because he was kind of hovering around waiting for some punishment, like he's done so many bad things
Mm-hmm.
in this existence.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't any kind of punishment, and so he was very happy, he's kind of spinning around
Mm-hmm.
and jumped on the highway. But his son, who was also there,
Mm-hmm.
didn't have that. He felt as if he was still tied to this and what's happening, and so he wasn't nowhere near ready to go,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still entrapped. That's what
Yes,
he
I
said.
have seen exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
That the sun is
he's just
flopping
Yeah,
around
it's just
in there.
fascinating
He's
how
not-
he still feels like he can command.
Because he felt he was going to inherit.
Exactly. Yeah.
He felt that was his inheritance, and
Yeah.
he felt that those people were going to die for him,
Yeah.
for his father, but really for him, and that he was going to be the next one. And he really had that very definitely imprinted, and he has not let that go yet. He's still having some confusion about.
Well, the sense that
There
I
he
got
is.
from him, he thinks that he can organize and orchestrate from where he is.
Yes.
He feels like he can, penetrate through the astral into
Yeah.
the physical. It's
And
fascinating.
you know, spirits do that in
Yeah.
flickers.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
do that. But of course, now he will deal with all the people who died for him and because of him.
Mhm.
And that will shake him loose of that at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it is fascinating.
Mhm.
It's a perfect example of someone you think is going to go into the light and they don't, and somebody who you think should really be in the bottom pit, and they're going, you know. Part of that is that we have, this is a little difficult for our linear consciousness, but we have collective souls.
Yeah.
You know, Hitler was not there by himself. Jesus was not there by himself. Buddha was not there by himself. Gaddafi is not there by himself. There's a conglomerate that influences the spirit of many, many others who influence and allow that energy to be strong enough to manifest what it is, because our collective consciousness has to come to the recognition. And so when we do something, for example, in that situation where I could say, where is Gaddafi inside you? Believe me, if you were willing, you'd find him. Because, again, anyone who's on this planet at this time, thank you, anyone that's on this planet at this time is a soul friend of ours. We are collectively here. Someone's playing the one, I'm the one starving. Someone's playing, I'm the head of the tribe. Someone's playing, I'm the killer. Everyone's playing the roles in order to push us through these very limited perspectives that we have about God, about what is good, about what is bad, so that we can, as humans, never have really, at least in our octave, in our realm of reality, we've woven together. The Lemurians had it for a while. As far as I know, they're really the only ones that ever did. The Atlanteans never got there to actually use collective consciousness.
And how is it then? Is it printed in our DNA then? How is that? Because I feel like
Well, the beauty of it is,
All of
remember
these,
that
yeah.
you are indeed carrying the violence, but also the bliss, but also the radiance of all beings who have ever been here. The breath of the first human is still moving in our atmosphere. So we, as we breathe in and out, we not only affect each other, whatever thoughts you're breathing out, I'm breathing in, but that goes back eons of time. So yes, you have that, but genes and genetic encoding are really only potential matrix. Consciousness overrules everything. Consciousness is the stimulus of evolution. So you may have physically, emotionally, I've never seen any physical DNA that anyone has inherited that doesn't have an emotional tag to it. Always you have an emotional tag to it. So those liquid pairings of genes are influenced by consciousness. So what we want to do is not say, oh no, I'm not the killer. What we want to say is to clear away the killer in us and amplify the one who can see past and through the killer in anyone else. That's just the outside coating. Again, the soul can never be dirtied, can never be soiled by incarnation. All unmanifest potential must come into form for evolution of the cosmos. It's cosmic law. So we never need to feel that, whoops, I did this terrible thing, whether you're Gaddafi or whomever out there, that cannot shift that, so that, and here's the kicker, through consciousness, now on this planet, we can change our DNA so that we do not pass the legacy of hatred, of violence, down into the future. This is a pivotal lifetime. And that's why a lot of people are dying. I would that they would die well. That's the thing I want to send out, is die in your sleep, die with a smile on your face, die and say, I did it well, I'm finished now. Don't die in disease, don't die in accident, don't kill yourself. We want to come to that place of love, because only when we come to that can we really begin to look at someone else and not say, you're going to overwhelm me. It's not my fault, it's because you did it. We do that on the one-to-one level, we do that in our familial levels, we do that in our societal levels, we do that on our racial levels, we do that on all levels on this planet. Oh, but those guys, whether it's the top or the bottom, it makes no difference. All of them fold into you. And so now you can use your consciousness not to say, ooh, I don't want to have the bad stuff, but embrace the bad stuff as part of the evolution of the soul. We misuse power in order to learn to wield power. And so we can release it. We release it through the vibration of light, through the cellular memory. Can't do it in the head. It doesn't happen because the mind wants to say, well, that's not who I am. No. It doesn't work that way. But anyone can do it. That's why I wrote that book, Psychogenetics. I really wanted to imprint that we are not the victims genetically on any level, not our spiritual DNA, which very much needs to be worked over right now, or our physical DNA.
So I have done actually 3 of these hyperbaric oxygen treatments, which have been really great.
Yes.
But when stuff comes out, it really it's coming out of my head. It really hurts. But so that's supposed to actually work on the DNA too. But I could see how it did, because I could see various DNA things like really separating out. It healed things amazingly.
Yes.
That part of
What
my
it does
wrist
is it gives the essence of life back.
Yeah.
So it brings you back to the point of choice, to discernment. I think that's fabulous that you did that.
I'm still doing it. I mean, I'm doing it
The
again on
hyperbaric?
Monday. Yeah, he wanted me to do a whole bunch in a row, but I found that doing 2 and then doing a bunch of other stuff, because I
Yeah,
can
to
traveling
rebalance.
works, and then
Yeah.
doing another 2 and then,
Yeah, so let us take a moment and talk
Yeah.
about hyperbaric
okay.
chambers, because I see so many people today, they have a stroke. They have a little, they have a little ripple, they can't remember anything, they go dead in there for a second. Hyperbaric, acupuncture can help this as well, but hyperbaric is probably the most advanced treatment for the brain. Why? Because it gives you back the point of source. It gives you the oxygen, which is what allows you to be in human form. It gives that to you, and in so doing, it can erase the genetic destruction that has gone on, the DNA that's been destroyed. It can allow your DNA encoding to come back to its highest octave. So I know that it's difficult, and as is always true, we have to push the authorities. You know, so often you go and they say, oh, well, you can't get that hyperbaric unless your doctor says so, or we don't have it here. Well, the more that we say, this is what we want, the more it'll be available. It's just like all the oxidative therapies. They are all fantastic. All of them, from vitamin C to every one of them, is just, it's going to feed your body. And the hyperbaric just doesn't.
Yeah,
The
it really,
quickest and the
really
most
was
intense.
amazing, yeah.
You know, ozone, all that stuff, hydrogen peroxide, all that stuff will just allow your body to let go and to be given to. I wish that people who suffered from depression, for example, could be given hyperbaric treatments, because it would take away their stuff without having to take drugs.
Now there was this boy in there who had a heart attack at 16 and been without oxygen. That was 2 years ago. He was in there at the same time as me. He doesn't have any real motor function, and he wasn't that conscious. He was still there. I mean, he's not, there's no machine that he's plugged into. But Pharaoh went up to him and, legged him a few, we stayed and talked, and his father was very committed to helping him. And, Pharaoh 3 different times licked him, and the boy had some response to that. But it was, the father was happy. It was, but what kind of, can you speak about that? I mean, that's a trapping of a different sort in a way.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And when somebody, usually they're on support life systems, but when they're like that, I think it's important, however, to say that you never know what's going on inside unless you're spiritually looking in there. Because he may not be able to gesture much or say much.
I felt
but he may be very, very much there, and waiting for his father to be balanced enough to let him go. That's example.
I felt he was waiting for
do
something.
another one of those and go out.
Yeah.
So it's always an interesting conversation. I find it fascinating that modern medicine can do such a thing. We can keep somebody alive in a vegetable state, or
He's
maybe
not
they
quite-
never come back.
Yeah.
And so I think that we need to let go, as they have in other places in the world, of thinking we know what's best for someone, but we need to be able to tune in and help them, to come back even more so into their bodies, or let go of their bodies.
Right.
But not be hanging around because the family feels guilty or feels that, they didn't do something and they have to fix it.
Right.
And that usually just creates karma that goes from one lifetime to
I
another.
mean, it was hard to know what it was, but it was, all very moving. And,
How old was he now?
It's 18.
18.
Yeah.
So again, what is the heart about? What's the heart about? And here we go entangling the mother and the father there. Because the heart is about giving and receiving love. The heart is about giving us the courage and the strength and the actual energy to commit ourselves to this particular karma, to this body. And so of course over the last 50 years, hearts have been the major, this is how we die, or a major disease. Why? Not because of anything negative, but because we are beginning to outgrow the things that we lived and died with before. We lived and died with guilt. We lived and died with shame. We lived and died with not seeing the self. And now we're coming to a time when we want to honor the self so we can use the body for the greater good. And so, of course, it begins with whatever we're working on. Whatever karma that we have is going to express it. The body never lies. It always shows you this is where your stuff is. And so what we want to do is to realize that we can heal a heart or a circulatory system or a brain or whatever it is through our consciousness as well. And that if you do not see a person holographically as a soul, you can't really help them to find the purpose of an experience. You know, and once we find the purpose, bodies don't do it again.
Mhm.
They just don't do it again. And I found that when, you know, they blew out my heart in Mexico and I got the chance to learn about who's telling what to whom in here. What's this heart doing?
Well, I could even see the purpose that I was in the same room as him when we were both working on it, because that is essentially in a way what happened at my near-death experience, or the near-death
Yes.
experience that I was involved with the equivalent of the boy being the disincarnate spirit of my father's twin. So that all got kind of muddled in
Yeah.
there.
So you don't
it's
want to
going
project
away.
onto that, you don't want to take it in, but you can
No.
be conscious of that.
Right.
Oh, look, here's a relationship.
Well, now I see
Am
it
I
as
going to
separate.
pass from it?
I see it as separate, whereas before I couldn't tell it was separate. It was all in there.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Right. All right. Thank you. Yes.
Stem cell therapy, your own stem cells.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Not
Absolutely
embryonic
love
stem
it.
cells, but
I
your own.
love it. I have a friend who's a stem cell researcher, and they are doing it all over the world, and of course being way ahead of the United States because we're so whatever we are about it. But imagine, I've never liked, and I've been with people who have had transplants, and so I've had a chance to look at that from the gross level. Transplant an organ or transplant a stem cell. Don't like it spiritually. I don't like it. But take it from yourself and recycle your body. Not because you're afraid of getting old, of dying, of this or that or the other, but because it's available. Because you've always had that stem cell. You could make it into anything you wanted. And so I love that science is saying, hey, we'll just take this little stem cell, we'll put it over there, and it'll grow into this. We don't have that perfected yet, but we're getting there. And I think that that's a fantastic way for us to begin to recognize the choices that we have. My higher self has said that in the future, we will not have machines. All machines will be organic. They will be living. And so stem cell work to me is a little progression into that area, because just to become aware that you have cells in your body that are from the beginning of this incarnation that can nourish your body and actually come back through that cycle. Whenever you get a new choice, a new chance, then you must superimpose your consciousness there and not only say, okay, we want this to be a skin cell, or we want this to be a blood cell or a heart cell or whatever we want it to be, but in your consciousness you want to hold what that means. You know, in other words, we don't want to go back to being 16. We want the consciousness to carry all that we have learned and rejuvenate itself. It reminds me of a great inspiration to me. Autobiography of a yogi. Yeah, what was his name?
Yogananda.
Yogananda, dear Yogananda. He had a heart attack supposedly, or he died when he was giving a big talk in the United States. Went over. His body did not putrefy. It did not putrefy. Why? Why was his body? You can't just throw it in some category, oh, he was more this or that or the other. No, because his potential is there for each one of us. And what they say, of course, is that there was so much self-love there that the tissues didn't putrefy. They didn't have to disintegrate. You know? So we want to begin to have those conversations. And at first, just like a child, we get a little help. somebody comes along and, scrapes that cell and fixes it up and injects it into you or sprays it on you or something, you get a little technical help there. There will come a point when we are able to do this. I am sure that other more advanced civilizations and species beyond our planet perhaps always do this. In fact, whoever came up with the idea probably had a little help. Some light went on and said, hey, this is a stem cell, it can become anything. As can we. We can become anything. What do we want to become? We want to, certainly we can say, body, thank you so much for teaching me through all these diseases and all these experiences. You're free, body, you don't have to do it anymore. Now I know your perfection. Now I can hold this. And that's what you want to do if you're going to do stem cell. You want to use consciousness connected to that so that those cells not only can form into, whether it's a skin cell, an organ cell, or whatever cell it is, but it can be a cell that has an enlightened consciousness, that has heard the command and will serve you, because our bodies want to serve us. And they only get sick in order to help us get the message, the purpose of our life, to learn the evolution. We're ready now. We don't need to do it through pain and suffering. We don't. So I love stem cell research, what's going on now. This advancement to your own conversation. Now, I would love to see a lot more of that. I would like to see whether, if someone is terrified that they're going to die, and so they have stem cell, what happens after a month, after a year, after 5 years? Can that stem cell hold the energy? Or will the old thoughts that are stuck in the heart come back up? That's why, of course, cancer comes back. Because we didn't get the source of it. We didn't get its purpose. We didn't get the message. And so the thought form is still lurking in the cellular memory. Stuck in the cellular body. Has to be released. And that's why it's so important for us to, every day, say something different and inspiring to our bodies. Thank you, body. And when I hurt my body, I always apologize. As if it were a person, I'm so sorry I hurt you. Because I have seen bodies cry. They will cry when they're hurt. Not you crying, oh, that hurts me. The cells crying. The cells feeling abused, disconnected from you. So we are multidimensional beings. And we need to have these multidimensional conversations in here. Conversations of consciousness in our bodies. I was just talking to someone recently about, this thing and that. We were talking about someone had just hurt their knee, and I was saying, I forget when it was, a few weeks ago, my dogs knocked my knee out, hyperextended it, just knocked the patella completely out. Everything froze, nothing could move. The body went into fetal position when you have no oxygen. It took me 2 days. Am I somebody special? No. I'm saying, sorry body, here body, figure 8, light, take this juice, fix it. It's fixed. I've done that many times. I've seen many people do it. I was taught that by someone, a physics person. I was taught how to do that figure 8. So I know that those stem cells have infinite possibility, but you want to put your consciousness in there too. You want to make that command. If you actually made the command, you probably wouldn't need the stem cells. But we're getting there.
Supposedly hyperbaric stimulates stem cells also.
Of course it must.
Yeah.
Of course it would. Yes.
I had 10 sessions of hyperbaric, 5 before I had 5 facelifts and 5 after, and
Oh,
everyone
fabulous.
said I progressed faster
Yeah.
than everybody
For sure you
else.
did.
Yeah.
You had that oxygen.
So how do you know if it's going to work for something? Like my friend has a really, her hip and leg, there's this nerve pain in her leg, and then the doctor says she needs hip replacement, which is probably right. She's 67. And she, well, I don't know, I just want to put numbers and names on this and that, but it's it does seem like he's a good doctor, and that could well be the case, but she really doesn't want to. But it's not that easy. There is a hyperbaric chamber in Jackson that the plastic surgeon, who's been working my wrist, you know, he liked the hyperbaric a lot too. And so it's unclear that they're gonna take her. Do you know what I mean? And it's not that convenient for her to come here for 3 weeks. She might be able to. It may not even be that convenient for me to be here with her for 3 weeks. So we have to, you know.
And it might not even be good for you.
It might not.
You might want to ask your higher self about that, what you're taking on there.
Right, I know.
You know, nobody gives any guarantees.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do.
But how
What's
do
the conversation at the hip for
Yeah.
her? Look at that thought form. She's 67, so
No,
of course she's
I
having problems.
realized I was.
Yeah, I knew you were. I just
Yeah.
want to make this point,
Yeah.
that we have infinite thought forms about how we're supposed to be at certain ages,
Right.
you know?
But it's not like she's 18, just to do, I was thinking of
Well,
that.
25 would be fine.
Yeah,
55
or whatever.
would be
The
fine.
other person I talked about was 18, so I
Yeah.
just was differentiating, you know, in that.
What I'm saying is that her
Scale.
age isn't really what's in the way.
Right.
But she may have thought forms, her parents might have started hobbling around,
Yeah.
losing their balance
Her
when they
mother's
were in their
90,
60s
no
or something.
arthritis, not a drop of arthritis, yeah.
Then she should connect with her mother and
Yeah.
see why she didn't get that inheritance,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Where's it coming from?
Her
She
father.
needs to, okay, so, you know, I would always
I've
say.
heard all this from her.
Yeah. So I would say she should come over here and do clearing her parents, psychogenetics, and really work on what are the thought forms in her body. Just as you had the hyperbaric before you had surgery, do that and then see if you have to do it. There are many technologies that could be used there. Stem cell could be used there. Acupuncture could be used there. I remember when I was an acupuncture student, we took these really long needles and we stick them all the way through our thighs, all the way out the other side, and all the way through our shoulder blade to the other side. And then when I was a student in Mexico, there was a fakir. We were in an art class, and he was sitting up on a table, and he had all these big old rusty nails. I mean, big rusty nails, you know. And he was just sitting there, sticking these nails. And of course, I had to go up and push a little bit, see if they were really going through, you know. Imprinted my mind just like firewalking is going to imprint you tonight. You know, he was there, he was really doing it. It wasn't a fake thing. I got to touch his skin and look at it, you know. We can perform miracles. But what keeps us from choosing it? Part of it is, one of the things that I have discovered is that the receptor cells get tired. They get disappointed in life. And they begin to say, I don't really want to do it. I'm too old for that. I don't want the juice of those hormones. I don't want that sexual energy. I don't want that lifeless energy.
She does.
Well, she does here. We don't know if she really does.
Yeah.
You
that's
can't
true.
know that.
That's true.
You know. And so what I'm saying is that what we find with aging is that the receptor cells turn off. And then you could inject all the growth hormone, all the hormone replacement you want, and it's not going to work. It's just going to clutter up the liver, and pretty soon they're going to have the next disease. You know, so we have to listen to the body and its story.
I had some roses that was just trying to freeze at my place, and they were about to bloom, and then you know the buds were looking like they were going to bloom, but then they were not really progressing because of the freezing, and the sun wasn't really on them so much anymore. So I cut them. I didn't bring them here, although I may still tomorrow or something. Yeah, these are doing great. I have a whole bunch like this, but these were a different rose.
Yes.
They're the ones near the pink crystal. They turn just the same color as the crystal. So I put as an experiment, because I was doing the oxygen and everything. I put a little bit of liquid hydrogen peroxide, because I was drinking some of that, because it's when you get off the oxygen, you're really I don't feel very good. So I was drinking some of it, but then I had trouble with, and I thought, well, it might be perfect for the plants. So I put the plants and the rose in there, and I put some of that Super Thrive. So that's the hormone treatment. And I put them in the sun, and I put the crystals beside them.
Yes,
And we'll see. I did that a
Oh.
little before. That's the experiment. That's the
We don't get
experiment.
the end of the story.
That's the experiment. But I'll take a picture and email it over. And then, you know, and I'm leaving on Tuesday, so they have tomorrow. We'll see. But I kind of think.
Well, you
they
know,
do it
all you
right
have
away.
to do is say, hey guys, You only have tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they're gonna
That
have it right
works,
away.
you know.
I got the feeling that everything's in there.
Well, you've given yours, now it's their turn.
Right.
Yes.
Could you talk some more about the receptors? I mean, that could happen at any age, right? Would
Yes,
we just-
absolutely. Let's say that you came from a very rigid family. I'm just using sexuality because sexuality is someplace that everybody gets about receptor cells. And you came from a rigid family, so you have infinite imprints, unconscious and conscious, about don't let anybody touch me, this is bad, this is not going to get me into heaven, da 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 da. You could be 18 and your receptor cells could just seal off. You just seal off, and you can, those hormones come in through the blood and they come into those gonadal cells, and the membranes of the cells just push them off. Go back to the liver and give the liver a lot of work. And so that's why it's so important to realize that physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental are all moving together. And we don't realize that these things are happening. So it's very easy to just tune in to your body and say, receptor cells, what are you doing? Are you sleeping? You know, what frequency of light do you need to awaken? Receive. Again, look at the theme. Do you feel that you're unworthy of being loved? Were you rejected by a parent? Were you rejected by a lover? Were you rejected in your job? Do you have themes, points of reference, of experiences that have said, you're not going to get any? And so you've said, I'm not going to get any. And you don't. You block it. And this is what I see in the world. We block ourselves from health, from joy, from communion, from intelligence, because of this little puny mind chattering away in there. So skip the rest of it, go right to your receptor cells and say, what are you doing in there? You know, whatever kind they are. And it's really amazing to get that information. You can't get that information under a microscope. You can't get it from a doctor. You have to get it from you, because you're the one that changes it. Your body will be willing if you unveil all of those places that have closed off, locked it away. We think we're so fragile that we could be hurt by someone else, you know, but that somebody touches us, they have cooties, you know. It's so amazing to me. I'm much more comfortable in societies where, you know, people just don't go into that stuff. They just all live together, and they really don't get the diseases that we get. In fact, again, the United States is something like 46 or something, way down the line of the healthiest countries in the world, way down the line. I'm trying to think, how many, 46, 36, 26, how many other countries could be ahead of us that are in the Western world? Well, they're not in the Western world, who are healthier than we are, who live longer than we do. That's because they don't carry around this kind of poison. What you think does influence what your cells will do, what they will express. So we're coming to the end. What else?
What about synergy?
Synergy. Of course, I love the word synergy. Because it means exactly what we've been talking about, that there is not a linear point, one point to the next point to the next point in reality. That, as the Chinese would say, everything is connected to everything. So I was thinking about this actually today. I was thinking in a side way a little bit, that people are always talking about our spiritual path. And of course, I really dislike that concept. Now that's always like, it's out here and you have to get there. Hurry up and get down that path and maybe you'll get it. Rather than at any moment, there's the hologram and you could awaken to it. So synergy is exactly that. Synergy is what the Chinese acupuncturists have been talking about for eons of time, that there is this holographic, multidimensional energy, and you can pull from any place at any time. That's what happens in incarnations. So synergy is the law that allows energies to come together into critical mass and manifest at any moment. So synergy is you happen to be in this place at this time when that occurs. Now when people talk about their fear of what's happening on the planet, I always talk about synergy. I always say, if you are in a place where there's a hurricane, where there is a disaster, you are synergistically there. And if you relax, move away from your fear, you will discover that you have the brilliance to change something. The same way that we've heard about, a child gets under a car and the father comes up and lifts up the car. We have 1,000 descriptions of those kind of things, that when we access critical mass, the synergistic energy of the divine life force, we can do anything. So it means we are always in the right place at the right time, even if it's something negative, because we can say, what's the gift? And then we use the energy, that's synergy. We use the energy and it propels us into the next octave. So let us imagine ourselves as powerful synergistic beings who are in the right place at the right time. And we look out at our lives, the people in our lives and the situations in our lives, and we feel that energy of the giver, the power of the giver. I have something to contribute to this. As you do that, then you'll feel that you're not missing anything, that nothing is lacking, and you feel the peace that comes with living a life well.